Welcome to Threes and TDs, where we talk all about the Carolina Panthers. And today we're going to be talking about what happened today. Dan Morgan had a presser, and so we're going to get to it, talk about what Dan Morgan talked about, talk a little bit about the Adam Thielen stuff. He had a really good, I guess we can address it right away. Dan Morgan had a really kind of nice, congratulatory, thank you Panthers for everything. I thought it was very classy. Kind of showed how grateful he was for the community. So anyways, I've got nothing but good things to say about Adam and the way he's kind of handled this. So I think that has been, that's been good. I'm glad that he had that farewell message to Carolina Panthers fans. Dan Morgan in his presser today, really the crux of this video is going to be the Dan Morgan stuff. So Dan Morgan in his presser today essentially said that that Adam is a pro in everything he does, and that he's been a professional throughout this whole process. And that was encouraging to hear. Dan Morgan also said, he talked about how the trade came to be. So Dan Morgan essentially said, it was very transparent. I very much appreciated that he was revealing some details about what happened, because not all general managers do that. So the fact that Dan Morgan was open to the idea of this, I think is a great thing. But essentially, Dan Morgan said the Vikings called him and said, hey, we're interested in Adam. Would Adam be interested in coming over here? And Dan Morgan called Adam Thielen to his desk and to his office and said, are you interested in this? And Adam said, yeah, I would be interested. It's my home. I'd love to kind of end my career there. So then the conversation began. But according to Dan, even though he was trying to do right by Adam, it didn't necessarily mean that the trade was actually going to happen. There was a good chance that the trade might not have happened because they couldn't agree on a price. Joseph Person from The Athletic reported today that apparently the price that they wanted to give was a sixth and maybe a seventh rounder, and Dan was like, absolutely not. And so I don't know, good for Dan Morgan for staying strong in what you believe in, and staying strong in this conversation is, we're not going to be a franchise. The Panthers are not going to be a franchise anymore that are known for making bad deals. And this is now a fourth rounder for Jonathan Mingo. It is a fourth rounder for Adam Thielen. So I don't know. I'm really, really pleased with the job that Dan Morgan continues to do. So anyways, that's the stuff from that's the stuff from the Adam Thielen stuff. I thought it was very, very nice of Adam Thielen to go on. He was already in Minnesota, and they said, hey, what do you have to say about Bryce Young? And he said, look, I wouldn't wish the first 2 years of Bryce Young on anybody. He had to go through so much. Obviously, he's talking about Scott Fitter and the kind of roster, Scott Fitter, Matt Rule, and how it was literally impossible for Bryce Young to succeed in those kinds of circumstances. It was just, there was no way that he was going to succeed in a environment like that. So anyways, that's the stuff with Adam. The other highlights of the presser, he was asked essentially about the linebacker room, because as we all know, we've talked about on this channel, that linebacker room is by far the weakest position group of any offensive or defensive unit. He talked about how he thinks Trevin is really developing. He talks about how Christian coming over from LA is everything they've wanted. He talks about some of these other guys developing. So I don't know. To me, it's really interesting that Dan Morgan, who is a former linebacker, isn't putting more resources to this linebacker room. And Evero and all these guys feel really, really confident in the linebacker room. The same question was asked about the safeties. Hey, how do you feel about this safety room? By the way, it looks like Ransom and Morg are going to start together. There have been a lot of kind of messages from the Carolina Panthers social media team that essentially have been insinuating that they're going, like they're together, the safe. So I don't know. It kind of sounds like they're dropping hints here and there about the rookie starting, which, oh my gosh, to get a fourth rounder, how often does a fourth rounder start for a team? So I think that's phenomenal. Once again, shows how well Dan Morgan continues to draft and develop the Carolina Panthers front office. What else was asked? I think Mike Kay from the Charlotte Observer essentially said, hey, this is now the second year in a row where you've gotten some guys that are UDFAs to be on your roster. Nick Scott, even though he's looked a little suspect in the All-22, but like Nick Scott, Damari Richardson, Jalen Coker, who else? His name is not, I'm forgetting his name, but the cornerback from Louisville. And so and Mike Kay essentially asked who in the scouting department, and he's like, I don't want to pick out specific people, but our scouting department is great. And so, yeah, there were a lot of good questions. He was very open, I thought, and vulnerable about the whole Dan Morgan situation. I mean, the whole not Dan Morgan, the whole situation with Adam. The other quote that kind of stood out to me about what he said is, we want to make this roster the best roster in the NFL. And look, it's early. It's not even, I mean, this was Dan Morgan's second draft, 2 years at the job, and you can tell that there are differences from his predecessor. So good presser day. Icky had to, we talked about this yesterday, but Icky had to have a procedure, so he might not be ready for week one. Damian Lewis didn't have a red jersey on, was back. Not full practice, but they're kind of easing him back on. We need Damian Lewis, who was a top 15 guard for us last year. That's how good Damian is. And the other thing he said in the presser is Jalen Coker is going to be playing more in the slot. We already knew that because when Adam Thielen went out last year, he also played in the slot. So, anyways, all good things today. That's your video for today. Carolina Panthers news. We talked a lot about the Dan Morgan presser. Thank you for liking, hearting, subscribing, sharing, doing all the things. All right, see y'all tomorrow.